All right, everybody. I want to welcome everybody today to Making Sense of Rooftop Solar in 2024. This is the first event like it of its kind this year that I'm familiar with. So I want to thank the Georgia Solar Energy Association and the folks at Solarize Cobb for putting this program together today to kind of get everybody caught up on what's going on, not just, with policy-wise, which there's a lot going on in the solar policy environment, but also, in the market, what's going on out there, kind of where the rubber meets the road kind of thing. So my name is Don Moreland. I'll be your moderator today, and I am CEO and founder of Solar Crowdsource, and also executive director over the Georgia Solar Energy Association. So I'm real happy to have you guys. Before we get moving much farther, I want to thank our gracious hosts here at Rich Hart Studios. If you guys have not been here before, those folks online, you have to check this place out. It's a beautiful studio, very professional. Everybody is super nice, and they've put up with us so far. So I want to thank everybody for that. I'm going to introduce our speakers here in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to just recognize some of our sponsors for today's event. Of course, we are hosting this in conjunction with the Georgia Solar Energy Association, and I'm not sure if James Riley, did you make it to the Zoom, and would you like to say a few words real quick on behalf of the Georgia Solar Energy Association? There you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Don. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is James Riley. I am co-chair of the Georgia Solar Energy Association. We are the largest and oldest organization dedicated to advancing solar energy in Georgia. As many of you know, Georgia is becoming a clean energy powerhouse, and frankly, it's pretty amazing. But there's always more work to do, especially with regards to rooftop solar. As an organization, Georgia Solar seeks to educate homeowners and businesses about the benefits of installing on-site solar. We also convene industry professionals with our events throughout the year. And last but not least, we advocate for policies at the state and local level that support rooftop solar, batteries, and other distributed energy resources. To learn more and support our work, please visit gasolar.org, and we hope to see you at another Georgia Solar event in the near future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, James. All right, now we also have a sponsor, Creative Solar USA, and we're lucky to have the CEO, Mr. Russell Seifert, here. Russell, anything you'd like to say? Thank you for sponsoring.
My pleasure. Been a member of Georgia Solar for many years. We've been in the industry for 16 years, and always enjoy these conversations that we have with multiple opinions and trying to push this forward.
All right. And also, I want to recognize the folks who are behind Solarize Cobb, the organizations involved there. The whole idea was, as a service, whenever you can get a group of organizations together, you want to leave something, and do something for the community and with the community. So putting on a discussion like this is something that the organizers at Solarize Cobb wanted to do as a way to just say thank you for giving back to the community and to have an educational event that can be shared among all folks in Georgia. So I want to recognize My Green Earth and Sierra Club, the Georgia chapter, Environment Georgia, and the Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. Thank you to those organizations as well. All right, just real quick, we're going to first talk about the solar market, and not just solar energy, but battery storage. Also, we want to hear from our panel of experts the latest and greatest of what's going on out there. And then we're going to get into some policy discussions. First, we're going to talk about Georgia policy, and then we're going to zoom out and take a little bit, a look at what's going on with federal programs and initiatives that are swirling around. It seems like everywhere around us. So we're going to try to ground those today and give you guys an update on how that might relate to all of us here in Georgia. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panelist speakers today. First, I'll start at the very end, Mr. Kaveh Kamooneh with COO over at Better Tomorrow Solar. Thank you, Kaveh.
Thank you for having me.
And Jennette Gayer, Executive Director at Environment Georgia, and also a board member over at the Georgia Solar Energy Association.
Happy to be here.
All right. Well, in that case, we will we'll get going here. So I don't know if any of you guys saw recently, but the Environment Georgia put out a nationwide rooftop solar report, and we have the best expert you could ever have to give us an update on that report, Miss Jennette Gayer. Maybe a little bit of the national numbers and how it pertains to Georgia rooftop solar.
Happy to. Great segue. So my name is Jennette Gayer, Director of Environment Georgia. Environment Georgia is a nonprofit, and we work for clean air, clean water, and green spaces, which is one of the reasons that we do a lot of work on clean energy and solar. And our niche is research, so really digging in on the problems and the solutions that are out there, and then also advocacy. So I'm down at the state legislature pretty regularly. I'm here today, but we'll be there tomorrow, and looking for policies that we can promote at the state level, at the federal level, to help drive clean energy adoption, cleaner air, cleaner water, et cetera. So the report that Don is talking about, it's called Rooftop Solar on the Rise. There's actually two reports that I think I'll probably spend some time talking about today, maybe three. It's called Rooftop Solar on the Rise, and we looked at very specifically what are the rooftop numbers nationwide and in Georgia, because for a couple reasons. So one is and maybe this is getting way more into the weeds than Don wanted me to get, but there's different types of solar, right? There's big fields of solar called utility scale solar, and then there's rooftop solar, and you could segment the different types of rooftop solar if you wanted to as well. Georgia does great at that utility scale solar, and in fact, we often tout the fact that we are number 7 in the country. Sometimes we go up and down just a little bit, but we are in the top 10. That's what I say, just to be safe. For solar capacity in the country, a lot of that solar is big fields of solar down in South Georgia. So I just actually spent last week at Universal Studios, Florida, drove down 75. You pass a lot of solar farms on your way to Florida in South Georgia. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, if we look at the numbers, how are we going to really solve the climate problems that we're having? Utility scale solar has to be part of the solution. But we would love to see more solar on roofs. It makes so much more sense to generate the energy right where you use it. And so that's, I think, why I'm excited that we're focusing on rooftop. That's why our report focuses on rooftop. So I said we're 7 in the country for solar capacity. I won't make people, I kind of want to ask people to guess, but I won't. Doesn't seem like the right audience. We are 35th in the nation for rooftop solar capacity. So a very stark difference between the solar that we're generating from big solar fields and then the solar that we're generating where we actually use it. So that's, I think, it's exciting to focus on this, and that's my important stat.
All right. Well, I'll ask all of you, and maybe I'll start with you, Jennette. Why the difference? Why so much rooftop or so much utility scale solar and not as much rooftop solar in Georgia?
Well, when I introduced myself, I said I'm a policy person, and I will say the reason is because of policies. But you guys might disagree and have other ideas, but there are policies in the state that are really helping to drive the adoption and the construction of those big solar fields, and there are policies that are holding rooftop solar back. So I think it's a policy conversation, and I guess when you talk about policy, you also talk about political will. So those things go hand in hand.
So we have the same rooftops that other states do here in Georgia. We have the same sun presumably, or maybe a little bit better sun than other states do, but it's the policies that drive the adoption of rooftop solar.
And I'll say, if you dig in on that report, Florida is definitely beating us on rooftop solar. South Carolina beating us, North Carolina. So it's not just a southern problem. Our neighbors are doing much better at this, much better at rooftop solar, and then also, I don't know if we're going to get too much into storage, but much better at battery storage that goes with that solar.
All right, Kaveh, what particular policy do you think would drive more rooftop solar in Georgia?
Well, I think a policy that aligns interests will not generate opposition from utility companies stands the best chance of success. And I think we're stumbling, or maybe not stumbling, but we have come upon something called virtual power plants, which is becoming really big. And the reason I'm so sanguine about them is that it aligns both our environmental goals as well as the interests of big utility companies like Georgia Power. And there are lots of reasons for that.
Yeah, I would agree. We're going to talk more about virtual power plants here in just a minute.
I just want to add
one
one
go
more
ahead.
thing. Yeah, and that's in stark contrast to net metering, right? Net metering asked Georgia Power or utility companies to forego some of their profits, and they naturally would be opposed to it. And in Georgia, they usually win, right?
So yeah, net metering is that policy where folks who have solar, whenever they're generating too much, more electricity than they're using, they can sell that electricity back to the utility. And net metering, I guess by definition, would mean that the utility would credit your utility bill per kilowatt hour for the energy that you send back to them. But we don't have net metering here in Georgia, do we, Russell?
We don't have what is called or defined as true net metering, meaning that it's a one-to-one match as far as what you pay for your energy in relation to what you get back. Depending on the utility, and because we have so many different utilities in the state, I think somewhere's around 47.
That's just maybe the number
From the
of
municipalities,
MEAGs.
EMCs, and
There's in the 90s,
Yeah.
total number of utilities.
Yeah, and then Georgia Power, which is the main shareholder of that market. Depending on the utility, you're getting somewhere from 3 cents to maybe 6.5, and there's maybe one EMC that maybe gives you around 10 cents per kilowatt at any given time. So it's never a one-for-one match. And the biggest thing is an education process to the homeowners or business owners so they understand why their ROI is where it is. And what you also have to deal with is that we have probably the lowest energy that they're stating nationwide in the southeastern U.S. So why is Florida and the surrounding states still beating us, though, when we have more land mass east of the Mississippi?
Well, I think the question might answer itself because Florida has net metering.
Right. So it comes back to policy.
Back to policy. Okay. Well, we said we're going to talk about the market, so let's get back to the market real quick. Kaveh, I'm going to hand it back over to you. How are things going out there? What do you guys do mainly? What kind of customers do you serve, and how's business?
Business has dropped a little bit, sort of counterintuitively since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. We expected last year to be a really good year. It turned out to be our worst year, actually. But we keep thinking that the incentives will kick in and business will pick up. But we did experience a bit of a slump last year, and I think that's pretty, Russell, am I right? That's kind of across the board.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot of homeowners and business owners had that sense of urgency in 2022 because the ITC was drilling down and about to go away, down to 10%.
And the ITC is the federal tax credit.
What used to be called the federal tax credit. And then in August of 2022, the IRA, which is replacing that.
That's the Inflation Reduction Act.
So don't get that.
I'm gonna provide little definitions. Here we go.
Yeah, because IRA account, or are you talking about Irish or what? So because that hit in August 2022, it caught a lot of people off guard. And so business owners, they weren't ready to jump because they had, when you own a business, you plan and forecast your expenditures. So the commercial market didn't pick up for about a year. And the residential homeowners that felt that sense of urgency, it was all of a sudden uplifted. The pressure's gone. Oh, well, we can do this next year or the year after. Then the other contributing factor is your interest rate adjustments. You had interest rate changes that affected the market. People would say, what are 3 or 4%? Why is that going to have such an impact? Well, when a lot of homeowners finance it, these finance companies add on excessive fees. So when you have some of these finance companies that are adding 20 to 25% admin fees on it, the 30% ITC tax credit has no value. So that had an additional effect onto the market. In addition to that, a lot of people seem to look at the trends in the economies of California. I mean, California had NEM3, which we're not going to get into. We won't go down a rabbit hole. But the utility rate structure for solar changed so dramatically, they thought it was going to change California's market by 50%. It affected it by 80%. So 25 to 30% of solar revenue is generated out of California alone. So it has an emotional, not necessarily an economic, it has an emotional impact on the mindset of people that, having solar is kind of a lifestyle. It's not a must-have or anything. It's people choose it just like an electric vehicle. So it's a lifestyle that they choose. So a lot of people put things on pause. But there are some benefits to it too as well.
Yeah. I think the NIM 3.0, which they're calling out in California, really has impacted the market quite a bit. And then you've got North Carolina. They also changed their net metering policies up there. So it seems like the more progressive rooftop solar policies are in a bit of a retreat these days. And when you mix that with inflation, high interest rates, and then some people would also say tariffs. There's still a tariff regime out there that makes the solar panels and some of the equipment more expensive in this country than it does in other countries. So that's a brew, I would think, that maybe contributes to where we are today. Kaveh, let's kind of turn the page a little bit, and you're boots on the ground. And seeing new technologies and going to these trade shows and things. So what new kind of technologies or business models or other things are you seeing out there that you think are really exciting moving forward?
Can I mention one more thing that might be?
You're going to anyway. So.
I just thought I should ask. There's also some of the provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act are not clarified yet. That, of course, affects the bigger, installations more than residential. But we're still waiting on clarification from the IRS on domestic content, for example, right? There's some other things that people aren't clear about.
Well, we're definitely getting into the IRA here in just a minute, the Inflation Reduction Act.
That's part of the reason I think we had the slump. Technologically, I think a lot of the, we're waiting on software and AI to sort of develop more in the renewable area. Again, I'm going to go back to VPPs because that's an essential part of virtual power plant. You have to have software to coordinate a lot of tiny assets like batteries and so on. So that's being developed. I think that will be the sort of soonest and most exciting technological development. Of course, battery chemistry is a big thing. Keeps, we don't know, solid state batteries, sodium batteries.
Are they ever going to come?
Solid state?
Yeah, they keep talking about it.
I think they're here. It's just scaling them is the question, whether they're going to be, cost effective.
Yeah. Russell, what are you seeing out there in terms of kind of new, exciting technologies? And another question I have is, how are solar panels? How more efficient are they today than they were, say, 5 years ago?
Solar panels have almost doubled in capacity as far as power output per square meter than what they did 5 to 7 years ago. You have solar panels that are putting out 405, 410 watts right up here out of Dalton, Georgia.
That's the
Q-cell.
60 cell?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they now, instead of a 60, they call it a split 60 cell, so you have 120, 144 cells. You have that technology improving. You also have battery technology, always, as Kaveh says, is improving. The biggest thing that we're seeing is that over the many, many years, you're doing a lot of mix matching with some of the battery technology and some of the inverter and solar panel technologies. And what you're noticing now is that some of your manufacturers are trying to be vertical to where it's all one component, panels, batteries, and inverters from one manufacturer, so you can see everything on one platform. And that's slowly coming in, but a lot of people, what we see the benefit is they like the idea of having just one app. They can see everything from battery to solar panel generation through the inverter, one platform. So, you have your big market share people, which are SolarEdge inverters, and Enphase, which are your microinverters. They all look at the panels from the micro level. And then you have Tesla, which is the big monster, which is really intervening in the market in a very aggressive manner. And they introduced their batteries. They sold over 600,000 batteries now global. It was announced yesterday. And, it's a very well recognized name as well. And it's just proven very well. So now Tesla has intervened in the market with their inverters. So you can see their power generation, what you're using, as well as what your battery is doing on multiple platforms.
Is this the Powerwall 3?
Powerwall 3, Powerwall 2 does it too.
Have you installed a Powerwall 3 yet?
No, we have 2 on order, but I'm aware of the betas across the country, and everybody has not had a single blink of an issue.
All right. Very good. All right. Anything else before we move on to really exciting policy talk here? And this is what everybody's been waiting for, right? All right. So Georgia, there's kind of 2 things going on right now. It's a very busy policy environment in Georgia this first quarter of 2024. You have your legislative session, of course. We're in year 2 of a legislative session down at the Georgia Dome. And then you've got some things going at at what some people were calling a surprise IRP, an integrated resource plan down at the Public Service Commission. We're going to touch on both of those. But first, Russell, I want to start with you, because in the news lately, we've heard a little bit more about a new bill that dropped for community solar in HB 1152. And one of our speakers today, Representative John Carson, couldn't make it because he had to be down at the Capitol. A couple of the bills that he's been working on are on the House floor today. And so he apologizes and wants to be here. He's kind of our tax credit and legislative expert, but luckily we have a lot of expertise up here as well. It's estimated in Georgia that maybe 50% of homes aren't really good candidates for solar energy because of just the way that the property is situated. Maybe they have too much shade. Maybe the front of the house faces south, and there's a homeowners association situation. There's and then you've got a lot of renters, folks who want to maybe get solar, but they can't because they rent instead of own. So HB 1152 was designed to help remedy that, a community solar bill that would allow folks to purchase off-site solar. So it would be similar to getting solar on your home. You'd have essentially the same benefits of saving money and generating clean, renewable electricity, but just doing it off-site from somewhere else. So, Russell, tell me, what do you know about community solar, and how do you think that would benefit Georgia?
Community solar has been a big topic for many, many years. We've seen a lot of models from various other states that are working very well, but because we live in a regulated state that the Public Service Commission has a lot of input on, along with the utilities, the community solar, I think, would have an incredibly great injection into the solar economics for the state, giving almost 3 times more access for homeowners, people that live in condos, people that rent, people that have HOAs where they just say, no way you're going to get it. It gives them an option to participate in choosing that lifestyle of renewables.
Yeah, we've in this industry for a long time. We've been talking about it's not just important to make a transfer from a fossil fuel based economy to a clean energy economy, but also do it in a way where the benefits are being spread among everyone, and so everyone benefits from the new clean energy economy. And community solar is one of the tools in that toolbox to be able to do so. Jennette, you're down at the Capitol, and I don't know if you were there for the hearing on HB 1152, but I was watching from the safety of my home on YouTube, and there's also a companion bill in the Senate over there. SB 210 was rewritten and is essentially a mirror image of HB 1152. So we'll see how one of those bills, if it progresses, any temperature that you can take from down there?
So February 29th is what they call crossover day, which is when a bill has to move to the opposite house. So we, as you mentioned, we have a bill in the Senate and we have a bill in the House. Neither of those bills have made it out of committee. They've had hearings. So it's going to be tight. But we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of good folks supporting it, but then there's a lot of opposition from I mean, it's public information. You can watch it online, but the utility companies might not surprise you that they are opposed to it for various reasons. Georgia Power, the MEAGs, and the EMCs, all in opposition of the community solar bills. Jennette, what else is going on down there at the Capitol that you think is interesting for us to talk about today?
I think there are a couple things. People brought up HOAs. I don't have a bill to cite, but no, there are conversations happening looking at North Carolina as an example. So there's so many places where your HOA, you go to install solar. I'm sure you guys have horror stories. And the HOA says, well, you need to go talk to the design review committee. And then lo and behold, 2 years later, the design review committee says, no, sorry, you can't install solar. In North Carolina, there was actually a lawsuit and a decision that makes it very clear in North Carolina, if your HOA does not have a policy specifically prohibiting solar, they cannot stop somebody or block someone from putting solar on their roof, which helps avoid some of these really long, drawn-out, protracted conversations with design review committees. It also gives people a little more clarity. If you're moving into a community that is silent on solar, then you can feel confident that you can, in the future, put solar on your roof. So that's a conversation that's happening. I don't want to... I guess I'm not in a gambling mood today. I'm not giving things percentages, but I'm hopeful.
Kaveh, how important is what they call in other states solar access bills that would prohibit HOAs from prohibiting solar in their neighborhoods? I know a lot has changed over the years. The technology for solar has advanced so much. The design of the equipment has been streamlined. It's really good-looking stuff out there these days. The cost of electricity has gone up, and people should have a right to use their property to do what they want, even generate their own electricity. Correct?
You and I have talked about this at length before, right? I kind of think that we need another strategy on that. It's really tough to get things, as as everybody here knows, to get things passed, pro-solar things passed through the legislation. And all attempts that I know of to fight HOAs in courts all across the country have won against the HOA. So I really think that we need to concentrate on on the judicial path to taking away this kind of right-denying policy of HOAs. It's not just with solar. Like in Vermont, there was a case where somebody wanted to plant not lawn, but some kind of flowers in front of their house. The HOA lost. The HOA opposed it and lost in court, the North Carolina thing. We just need one. We are willing to put a solar system on somebody's roof who's willing to fight their HOA. Most people don't want to do that because obviously you're going to have to live in that neighborhood and so on. But if you know someone who wants to do that, we're willing to put a solar and take it off if you lose for free. But I don't think you're going to lose. So that's like putting it out there. If you know anyone who wants to do that, we will do it. We will do it for free, just to take this case to court.
I think
we also need
I think you might have good company with folks that might help out that effort. That reminds me of years and years ago, there was a company down in Savannah that was opposed to this idea of a private developer being able to install solar on your property and sell you the electricity that's generated. And I think that they called the name of their company that they intentionally did this with, Lower My Bills with Solar, LLC. And so when the utility company sent them a cease and desist and it got some press, that was part of the messaging. It was in the name, and I thought that was really interesting. Now, of course, with the passage of HB 57 back in 2015, I think it was, the legislature unanimously has approved the sale of kilowatt hours from developers like Cherry Street and others that are they're willing and able to be able to put a facility on your solar facility on your property. They own it, they maintain it, and will sell you the electricity that's generated. So that is probably the latest great win we've had legislatively in solar in Georgia. Russell, I feel like we didn't really touch on commercial and the C&I market, the commercial market, real quick. So I wanted to just back up real quick and do a status check with you on. We've been talking a lot about residential, but how is the commercial and industrial market going these days?
Commercial and industrial market has picked up significantly. Just to add one other thing onto Jennette's comment about utility scale, they expect that number to double from what 2023 was in 2024, just to give you an idea how much is in line right now. But the commercial is definitely picked up some. We're seeing a lot of nonprofits going that way because of the IRA, because instead of a 30% tax credit, because nonprofits don't have a tax appetite, they get that back in the form of a grant from the federal government. It will take them a long time to get the money back because you're dealing with the Fed, up to about 2 years or so, but a lot of them see the benefit of that. Also, a lot of nonprofits are doing it because of the opportunity of SEPAs, like you were discussing. SEPAs is called a Solar Energy Procurement Agreement, which is what was passed back in 2015, and a lot of companies are offering those resources as well, so they have a third party that will take on the tax appetite.
Yeah. And Jennette, are there any bills down in the legislature that might apply more toward the commercial market that relates to solar as well? Indirectly?
No, but I do want to talk about warehouses. I feel like this is a conversation that has arrived at the Georgia State Legislature and is here to stay. So, and this is another stat that I had that I made sure I pulled. So Georgia has, when we wrote a report about warehouses and the solar potential that comes with warehouses. When we wrote this, and this was, over a year ago, so I'm sure we have more, but we had 15,190 warehouses in Georgia. If we put solar on the warehouses where it made sense, we could power 753,000 homes. So huge potential out there. The one thing that is happening, and this is why it's too bad that Representative Carson is not here today, is he has a bill, HB 1192, that would do away with a tax credit that warehouses get right now And it was passed originally to entice warehouses to come to Georgia as sort of a, business development plan. Clearly, it's worked very well because we have a lot of warehouses in Georgia. But I think there's an opportunity there, right? And this is where maybe the answer is not policy, but more an education issue. I've had a couple conversations with folks who work with warehouse owners, and one of the things they always say is, we don't want you to put holes in our roof. And then I talk to my solar friends, and they say, we don't put holes in the roof. So I think there's some education that could happen. And then as Representative Carson is negotiating his bill, is there an opportunity there to encourage warehouse owners to put solar on their roofs? If we're not going to build more, let's make sure we have warehouses that we're actually getting something out of. So I think this is a huge opportunity. I'll also say there's another bill, HB 1043. This is a bill that is kind of a sweetheart deal for the cryptocurrency miners, which use so much energy. I don't think this bill is going to pass because I think people have gotten wise. So these are not great neighbors. These are not things that you want moving into your neighborhood. But another option, right? If these things are going to suck up a ton of our energy, why aren't we making them generate a little and put back some solar into the grid?
Yeah. Absolutely, and a couple other bills to kind of keep an eye on, then we're going to turn the page, are there's HB 300. This is a utility scale bill that deals with decommissioning and disposal of solar equipment at the end of life that I believe made it from the House to the Senate, and that's where it is, so we're keeping an eye on that. And then HB 73 is a consumer protection bill, which we're excited about and also cautiously optimistic about. And I won't get into too much detail now, but check that one out. It started in the House last year, and it's now in the Senate Regulated Utilities Committee, and they're, I believe, might talk more about that after crossover day. So those are other things that we're keeping an eye on. The other thing happening policy-wise is down at the Public Service Commission. So Russell alluded to it earlier. Normally, there's a integrated resource plan. This is where Georgia Power proposes how they want to, generate and sell electricity. It's to help with their 20-year planning. And the last one they had in 2022, and normally it's every 3 years. So then the one coming up was going to be in 2025. Well, due to a great deal of unforeseen economic development.
From warehouses that don't have solar on top of them.
Yes. I actually want to talk about that. The economic development, when you speak with some of the commissioners, they say, well, it's all these data centers. It's AI. It's cryptocurrency that's generating this growth. But I also wonder, how much of it really is the IRA and all of these battery manufacturers and the expansion of Q cells and, some manufacturing tax credits that are within that. You don't hear those talking points necessarily, but I'm very sure that that has a lot to do with the amount of growth we're experiencing here in Georgia as well. So Georgia Power proposed to do an interim IRP. They couldn't wait till 2025 because they were concerned that there's so much growth coming here and so soon that we needed to act this year. And so we are right in the middle now of a 2020 or an IRP update from 2022, and where they are projecting, I think, a 16 or 17 fold amount of new capacity that's going to be required in order to accommodate all of this new economic development, and that was not foreseen just 18 to 24 months ago. So I think 6,600 megawatts is the kind of number there, the capacity that they're asking to include, and at Georgia Solar, we are one of the interveners on that case, and the proposal by Georgia Power was to almost exclusively expand that capacity with fossil fuel development, or adopting or purchasing electricity from, say, a fossil fuel plant in Mississippi or Jacksonville, and maybe not even retiring coal plants as quickly as they once were going to. So there's a lot of great interveners, a lot of great discussion going on down there, but it's another something to look out for. Georgia Solar Energy Association, we did intervene, and we submitted testimony around the creation of a virtual power plant, just like what Kaveh was talking about before. And this would be where they already have a customer-owned distributed energy resource part of the IRP, and a new tariff to that regard. We're asking Georgia Power we're asking the Public Service Commission to expand that to residential as well. The one that's in place is really for just commercial and industrial customers. We're asking them to expand it to residential customers who adopt battery storage and agree to allow the utility company to throttle and to take power from those aggregate amount of batteries in case they need it at peak times. And so that's really important, because should they adopt such a plan, it could help maybe reduce the reliance on other fossil fuel plants or a peaker plant, or from other types of generation. And the technology is all there. The battery storage systems are there. The software is there. This has already been done in other states. So Georgia, I think, has a really great opportunity to be on the forefront of this kind of new model in order to prevent more lines from coming on board. I'll get to you in a second, Russell, but Kaveh, you're familiar. You mentioned these virtual power plants before. Tell us what you know about virtual power plants in general, and has there been any work in Georgia so far?
Yeah, so we did a pilot program for Georgia Power where we, they had some batteries. They had us install them, 21 of them, so not a lot, but it's just strictly a pilot program where they are. It's now done, and now they're collecting data. So we'll see where that goes. They're kind of hush about that data. We'll see. But what I did want to mention was that the virtual power plant scheme with PG&E and Sunrun in Northern California only took 6 months to ramp up from conception to complete grid exporting kilowatt hours. This is 8,500 batteries. So just do the math, and try building a gas plant, a real power plant, gas, in that amount of time. One more thing is that when you have a virtual power plant, there is no queue, interconnection queue. Interconnection queues for real power plants are up to 5 years now, depending on size. This is just a couple of weeks or however long it takes Georgia Power to come and do the interconnection. I mean, the flexibility, the speed, the lack of capital from the utilities point of view. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. And there's we're slow to see that, the regulators and the utility companies, but I think that's changing. Hopefully, this IRP will.
Georgia Solar Energy Association would agree with you. We're looking to the program to initially have a total aggregate capacity of 50 megawatts, which together would be quite meaningful. Russell, what would an adoption of a program like that have on your business? What percentage of your customers are already getting batteries? And if customers were to get a small rebate on the purchase of a new battery and then get compensated for use of their battery over the next 5 years, how would that play with your customers?
I think it'd play very well. We have about of every 10 customers that buy residential solar, between 6 and 7 of them have energy storage. But real quick, do y'all know what VPP is? Because we talk about it a lot up here. Are you all familiar with what that means? Okay.
virtual power plant.
Real quick, they use the word virtual power plant, meaning that if you have energy storage at your home, you have an agreement with the utility company as well, and the utility company, say between May and the end of September, will buy X amount of kilowatt hours at certain times of the day, and you have X amount in reserve of your own. So this way, you have another way of generating a small bit, don't try to get rich, a small bit of revenue in compensation for that. And that will accelerate your return on investment on that as well. And it's been provided by the utility company. But as Kaveh suggests as well, no infrastructure is required by the utility. Everything else, like he said, 6 months, it's a no-brainer. So about 60 to 70% of our customers do energy storage currently.
All right. Jennette, anything else on the IRP you want to talk about? I know there are hearings coming up on the 29th of this month, this week, and March 1st. And I believe they're taking public comment on that first day before the hearings kick off. So you folks...
I'll repeat, and I wish I had looked at this number so we can send it out maybe. But Florida, I think, has 10 times more battery capacity than Georgia does. So it's just ridiculous how far behind we are falling. And I love this idea.
Yeah.
I'm glad Georgia Solar.
Florida and the Carolinas went right past us in a matter of a few years.
All right, so let's turn to federal policy. Just in the interest of time, we're going to go through this and we'll open it up to some questions and answers from folks online here and here in the room. A lot going on federal-wise, too. We talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know how much time we're going to be able to get into tax credits, but we also want to talk about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and I want to give a quick plug out to GEFA, the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. They're accepting applications right now for a little bit of money they have on what's it, Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant Program that they're facilitating. So you guys look up GEFA and check out that program and see if your community might be interested in applying for those funds. Okay, so quickly, the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a lot of components to it. We don't have time to get into all of it, but as it pertains to solar, we've mentioned it before that the federal tax credit scheme of 30% has now been extended through 2032. But not only that, there's other tax credit goodies in the mix as well. So Russell, let's start with you real quick on a tax credit basis. Let's say I'm a commercial customer and I'm looking to maximize the use of tax credits for my organization. How do I, like when I call you up, how does that conversation look like?
Any homeowner or business owner automatically, if you have a tax appetite, you have a 30% tax credit on the total cost of the installation of the system. Components, labor, materials, everything there, et cetera. And then if you're a business owner, what you get on top of that, currently this year, you have a 60% accelerated depreciation of the cost of the system as well for the system from a federal guideline.
That's the depreciation?
Right,
Okay.
accelerated depreciation.
Yep.
Homeowners and business owners, if you need some additional infrastructure, such as your main panel needs upgrading in order to supply all this demand with battery and storage, and you have an EV, it covers, I think, $4,500 for a homeowner, and AJ, I'm not sure what it does for a commercial owner or not. Upgrading the system.
I would give it a check.
Okay, all right.
Subject to check.
Yeah. But there's good incentives out there, without a doubt.
What about more than 30%? Are there certain conditions that I believe it's open to commercial, but even nonprofits now can benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act, correct?
You mean the U.S. made?
That too?
That too.
Yeah. So there's bonus credits available for qualified facilities, and depending on the actual site that the building, and I don't have all of them at the tip of my tongue, but I know that there's additional tax credit for domestic manufacturing. There's an additional tax credit if the if the development is in like an opportunity zone or a low-income area, right?
So people can get up to somewhere as close to 50% of a business based on its geographic location in addition to the tax credit. So it brings a great return. And then there's also USDA has been very aggressive in their REAP grant opportunities in the state. They injected its largest amount I've ever seen.
There's also a 10% for energy communities. We have 2 tiny energy communities in Georgia. There's another 10% if the user of the energy is a lower income, lower middle income community. So theoretically, although I've never seen this happen, you can get 70% back.
Yeah, that's. I can't wait to see that first one go through. We're going to hear a lot about it when that first one goes through. Other things in the Inflation Reduction Act include you can now get 30% federal tax credit on your battery. You could have gotten that before, but you had to get it along with solar. But now, if you just get a battery by itself, you can even get a 30% federal tax credit on that. And a lot of incentives in there available if you're looking to electrify your home or even your transportation. There's always been kind of this $7,500 tax credit for an electric vehicle, but now there's one for a used electric vehicle. There's tax credits for heat pumps, for cooling and air. There's tax credits for heat pumps for hot water, even all the way down to your cooking appliances and everything in between. You can also get a $150 tax credit for just getting an energy audit, which is where you want to probably begin on that process. And then soon here, there will be rebates available for low and moderate income folks who qualify under those standards as well, which I want to circle back with and have a little bit of an equity discussion here in just a second. But before we do, what else is kind of exciting, Jennette, going on the federal level that pertains directly to us here in Georgia?
I think there are a couple big programs that have solar baked into them that are going to ramp up this year. So the first is the Climate Change Reduction Fund Grant Program. It's a mouthful. Which is really aimed at local governments and how can local governments reduce their carbon footprint. That's being led by the Environmental Protection Division and the Atlanta Regional Commission. So there's sort of 2 government entities that will be putting together a plan and then helping to re-grant funds to implement that plan. So this is a great opportunity for solar installers, developers to connect with local governments where they have relationships and start putting solar on roofs. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to, first of all, get the first ever climate change plan in Georgia, but then hopefully implement and drive some solar. The other program is called Solar for All, which is really a program that looks at how can we make sure that the benefits of solar are accessible to all, to lower income and medium income Georgians. And that pot of money had a deadline last year for proposals. The state of Georgia applied, a coalition of cities applied, and I think Gwinnett County had a coalition that applied. So we have a couple people have said, we'll take the money, and we'll find out in a couple months whether or not Georgia gets the money. I feel confident we'll probably get one, but don't know which one.
And that program will make, for low and moderate income folks who are interested in solar, it's a lot of money and could change a lot of people's lives. And when you're generating your own electricity on your own house, what you're not doing is buying that electricity from the utility, so you're reducing your energy burden, which is a big problem in certain parts of our state here in Georgia, and where I hope a lot of this would be applied. But Solar for All isn't the only low and moderate income program in Georgia right now, is it, Kaveh?
No, we have a program that is being administered by a nonprofit finance company called Good Leap.
Georgia Bright?
The program is called Georgia Bright. Yeah, the program is called Georgia Bright. The company is doing is it Good Leap or Capital Good Fund. Sorry, thank you. I knew good was in there somewhere. Capital Good Fund. Sorry. And so we've already signed up over 20 homes. It's all over Georgia. And I think 4 of them are already generating. They've been interconnected. And it is the first, I think this is correct, the first residential solar lease program whereby the homeowner doesn't pay anything up front and starts saving from the first month, which is not a fraud. I mean, that claim is made often, but this is actually the case. We're very, happy or proud to be part of that. It's being done all over the state. And the only requirement other than having to own your roof is that you need to make less than $100,000 of annual income, total household income. And it's also open to nonprofits.
And a program that wouldn't exist, completely enabled by the Inflation Reduction Act, with the new nonprofits can now monetize tax credits. There's direct pay and transferability rules now that did not exist before. So this nonprofit CDFI, the Capital Good Fund, is able to take advantage of these new tax rules and then pass those benefits on to homeowners. So it's just a great example of what policy changes can actually do. All right, we could be up here all day. We're running out of time. So we wanted to just give a moment for some questions and answers. So we're first going to turn to the folks online. If there's any questions, I think maybe Emily is there to help pose those to the panel.
Hi, everyone. There are just a couple of questions from the online crew. So I'll ask the first one, and that is, what are the panels called that track or move with the sun? And how many of these have been installed in Georgia? And are they worth the extra cost?
Well, I mean, they're called trackers, and the panels are panels, but they sit on a motorized system that is designed to track the sun so they can maximize the amount of energy that's being produced. I know it used to be more cost efficient to just put panels on a stationary racking system because of the operating and maintenance cost associated with the upkeep of these tracking systems with the motors and all the moving parts and what have you. But I think the technology has improved quite a bit over the years. Russell, you have anything to add to that?
It's still very counterproductive as far as you can put any solar panel on the tracking system that you mentioned of, unless you go utility scale and they have a single axis tracker, which is what you're seeing a lot of now and produces about 18 to 20% more energy. So it gives investment organizations, utilities a much better ROI. As far as a homeowner, it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's probably better just to put it on a fixed racking system, even for any rooftop. Commercial?
More solar panels will offset because you don't have the worry about the upkeep.
Yeah, and I think you have to have more land for a tracking system. You got to space those solar arrays out a little bit further. So there's pros and cons of each. All right, Emily, what else you got for us?
The next question is about the role of Governor Kemp. Is the governor able to permit more flat roof on-site commercial solar despite the opposition?
Jennette, you want to?
I'll do that. And then I'm also squinting at the Zoom. It looks like I've been joined by Representative John Carson. Is that you, Representative Carson? Hi. Thank you for joining us from the state legislature. I'll say I think there are absolutely incentives that we could look into that would help incentivize solar on flat roofs, solar on warehouses. I also, getting back to earlier, I think it's an education question as well. We have to get over this challenge that people think you're poking holes in roofs, which is absolutely not the case. So I think it needs to be a combination of those two things. And if Representative Carson wants to add anything, he can.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say hello real quick. I apologize. I think you're moving pretty quickly down here at the state capitol. A lot of things going on in tax and transportation and in energy, and so a lot of things being focused on. I think the question is in regard to, is there anything that Governor Kemp can do in regard to permitting? I really think that's up to the Public Service Commission for now, but I know we have some pro-solar voices on the commission, including most notably Chairman Jason Shaw and obviously Tim Eccles and Bubba McDonald. I think it would have to start with a joint effort with the PSC to determine that right amount to allow that. I just call it energy choice, Don. You and I have talked about that. I just call it energy choice. I think it would have to start with the PSC, and it might have to go through legislative approval as well. I didn't have a lot, and I do apologize for being triple booked at this hour, but a lot of things going on, and I just appreciate being able to say hello real quick.
Well, no, thank you for joining us. You missed our tax credit discussion, but
I know, and I hate that because that's my business. So, yeah.
If you're looking at solar and maybe you don't have a tax liability and you want to see, maybe you can partner up with somebody who does have a tax appetite. Representative John Carson is your guy for that. That's what he does his day job, and look him up and give him a quick call. I'll just answer the question also by saying if Governor Kemp were to signal that we want more rooftop solar in Georgia, then we would have more rooftop solar in Georgia. I think that would be quite an endorsement coming straight from the top there. All right, Emily, one more?
One more question. How can we get more of the utility scale installations to be designed to be pollinator friendly and leave topsoil in place to improve agriculture even after decommissioning?
I love this question. You guys may or may not have heard of agrivoltaics. So you're taking agriculture and photovoltaics and smashing them together to create a solar array, a utility scale solar array that may span, tens of hundreds of acres, but also having it where that land is also usable for agriculture. It could be for vegetables, for fruits, could also be for grazing sheep or other types of livestock. There's a movement across the country. You're seeing more and more agrivoltaics around, and it's a very exciting field. And it's also really provides restorative properties back to the land as well. We don't have a bill or any kind of mandate from the Public Service Commission in Georgia that I'm aware of that would require something like that, but we are seeing a lot of developers taking it upon themselves to be more agrivoltaic in their developments. Anything else from the panel? All right. We have a little bit more time to take any questions from the in-person audience here. All right, we've got one right here. Thank you. 1 second. We've got a microphone coming up to you.
My background is space and electronics warfare. How EMP secure are you? What is your software security? And last but not least, grid tie solar traditionally dies when the grid goes out, so you don't have any backup power. What are your goals for doing those, covering those kind of things, mitigating?
Yeah, Russell, you're going to have to take this one.
EMPs, unless you had about 4 feet of lead all the way around it, that's your only protection. So if you think solar is going to isolate you from the grid if there's any type of sabotage, sorry. Number one. Number two, as far as if you have solar on your roof and no energy storage and the grid goes down, you're right. You do not have energy. It's the NEC code. It's for the safety of the utility workers out there on the line, and that's why it's there. So if somebody tells you that if you have solar and the grid goes down, you'll still have it, run.
Yeah, it's important to couple that with battery storage. And then in terms of security, most of these systems are connected. There's communications. You're able to monitor the performance of the system on your phone, and that reports back to anybody who might be monitoring it as well. Has there ever been any security breaches or any hackings of a solar system that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. The only thing that sometimes will cause interruptions is if your battery storage company does a software upgrade, and it may go out and may just need to take time for it to catch up on it. That's about really it.
The dreaded firmware updates.
Firmware updates, yes.
All right. Any other questions from the audience here? Yes, sir. We got a microphone coming over to you.
You mentioned this earlier, but I was wondering about advances in transmission and storage in this industry.
Ooh. I think Jennette mentioned earlier that there's a lot of utility scale solar in Georgia, but there's a lot of it down in the southern part of Georgia. And transmission and distribution upgrades are going to be required to spread that good, clean electricity around the entire
Which
state.
is part of the IRA.
Which is part of the IRA, yeah.
There's money in the IRA to help with transmission lines and help to take a close look at Georgia's transmission situation and update it if needed. So, yes, coming. Public Service Commission has the money to do it. And then if you guys want to talk about storage and how much it's increased, well, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I would just want to say, when you talk about rooftop solar, you're generating and storing the electricity at the place where it's being consumed, which bypasses all of not just transmission, but also in a lot of cases distribution systems. So a lot of the the things that might be required from generating electricity at a large power plant hundreds of miles away aren't required with distributed generation rooftop solar. So there's the kind of inherent benefit from expanding our ability to generate electricity where the power is being consumed. Kaveh?
Yeah, and that's another big plus. I keep going back to VPPs. An extensive virtual power plant scheme will save a tremendous amount of money on transmission, which in a lot of cases is more expensive than generation. I mean, transmission, it could be more expensive than generation. So that's a major component of the savings the utility will realize if they generate power on the customer side.
All right, one more question, and I think we have to call it a wrap.
Hello. You mentioned that the uptake of consumers could get solar on their roofs is kind of declining. What are solar installers doing to incentivize people to get rooftop solar as far as provide maybe a charging port for their electric cars, integrating their solar panels to the security systems? What kind of incentives are you all doing for that?
I'll hand it to our contractor folks to answer that one. Starting, Kaveh, you want to take a step?
I do want to say that we do think this is we hope this is a very temporary situation. Prices are coming down again after having gone up. So they're coming down even in like the nominal figure, not inflation adjusted. So the per watt price of solar panels have declined. Batteries are coming down as well. The incentives we talked about have never been better. And also, just as importantly, the rates are going up way more than inflation, right? I think the national increase in rate in 2023 was 14% nationally.
Utility rate increase.
Yeah. Yes, utility rate. And this year is probably going to be more. In Georgia is sort of leading that with 3 or 4 different rate increases having hit. So we hope that that slump is going to be done soon.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
I think Kaveh's pretty much hit all the specific points because we've seen utility rates go up about 24% from Georgia Power customers this year alone. It's supposed to go up another 15 to 20% over the next year. So there's your incentive right there. I mean, you may not see it now, but it's like putting the frog in the pot on the stove. It's going to catch up to you if you don't pay attention to it.
All right. All right, everybody. Let's hear it for our panelists, our speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank all you guys for coming out, taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about rooftop solar in Georgia, where we are and where we're going. I want to thank also our sponsors, our host, Georgia Solar Energy Association, and the good folks over at Creative Solar for helping out as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your week.